How do you think the war is going right now?
I think the war is going as wars go, which is it's a very complex situation where sometimes you're going to see things moving in your direction, sometimes you'll have what you see as setbacks.
You can't look at Iraq in a vacuum. What we're involved in here, as General Lutz said to our committee last week, is Iraq is now the main front in the long war we are fighting against the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on 9/11.
We rested our case on the existence of weapons of mass destruction that were a threat to us and could be given to terrorists, making it another kind of threat to us. I think without that weapons of mass destruction case, the justification would not have been there. I think it is doubtful that without the weapons of mass destruction case, the President, the Congress, the United Nations, and those who joined us in the conflict, the British, the Italians, the Spanish, the Australians, would have found a persuasive enough case to support a decision to go to war.
I guess the question that it comes down to is how long is this going to take? Because you could read what you're saying and say this is a recipe for basically a perpetual war in Iraq and the Middle East.
No, we're going to be in a struggle against radical Islamic extremism perpetually, certainly for as long as you and I are alive. I mean, it's there. It's all over the world. But as far as Iraq is specifically, I think that Iraqi military and Iraqi government will be struggling to get a total security environment for many, many years. The key to it is them taking over their responsibilities and us being able to withdraw and come home.
As far as how, when, or where you achieve a benchmark, that's impossible for anybody to say. The real question is,
in fact, 90% of the suicide bombers in Iraq today, killing Iraqis and American soldiers, are foreign al-Qaeda fighters.
And al-Qaeda is a relatively small percentage of this overall problem, but a very violent percentage. As the National Intelligence Estimate characterizes al-Qaeda, it says they are the accelerant. They have the most effective bombs, the more vicious soldiers that are on the battlefield in this civil war. And so they have to be dealt with. But it is not just an al-Qaeda problem. It's much bigger than that. It is a sectarian conflict that I choose to call a civil war.
At the Armed Services Committee yesterday, Senator Bai quoted a CIA analyst saying, we're creating more al-Qaeda recruits than we're killing in Iraq.
And in all due respect, we're there. Does that CIA agent expert now say, okay, let's get out of there and see what happens then? Then there will be lots and lots of recruits.
The fact is that there has been some progress, but on the other hand, you don't want to get in the position of trying to promote rosy scenarios. This is tough business.
So your timeline, though, for this surge strategy is much shorter.
Unfortunately, it's much shorter because I read the polls, I know what American public opinion is, and I regret that now September seems to be a magic moment.
Isn't it?
Perhaps politically, not as far as I'm concerned militarily, nor Petraeus either.
If there's any hope of the Iranians living according to the international rule of law and stopping, for instance, their nuclear weapons development, we can't just talk to them. If they don't play by the rules, we've got to use our force, and to me that would include taking military action to stop them.
It would be difficult to imagine the American people supporting yet another war in the Mideast.
I think we've got to be prepared to take aggressive military action against the Iranians to stop them from killing Americans in Iraq. And to me, that would include a strike over the border into Iran, where we have good evidence that they have a base at which they are training these people coming back into Iraq to kill our soldiers.
David Kay, the former UN inspector, went before the Senate and said that members of the intelligence community knew some of the information not to be true, and yet they still sent you out there.
The intelligence community said, and had every reason to believe, that they not only have the capability of having them again, but they have stockpiles. And that was the precipitating cause. Now, some in the administration have subsequently saying, well, yeah, but maybe the weapons aren't there, but they're bad guys anyway, and I'm glad the regime is gone. I'm glad the regime is gone. I'm glad Saddam Hussein is gone. But the case that we took to the world, and the case that we took to the American people, rested not just in his human rights abuses or his cheating on the oil for food program. It rested on the real and present danger of weapons of mass destruction that he could use against his neighbors or terrorists could use against us. That was the precipitating issue in my judgment. And it turned out those weapons were not there.
You told Vanity Fair that you thought that history was going to judge Colin Powell harshly. Why?
I don't believe I said it that way. I believe that Colin Powell is worried about history judging him harshly because of his statement at the Security Council, which was basically providing the argument for going to war in Iraq, and Colin Powell has stated that he wished that he had not used some of the information that he received.
He's a great American, a great soldier, but he is also very cautious. I'm afraid history will judge him harshly.
And if it was up to me, I would close Guantanamo, not tomorrow, but this afternoon. I'd close it. And I would not let any of those people go. I would simply move them to the United States and put them into our federal legal system. The concern was, well, then they'll have access to lawyers. Then they'll have access to writs of habeas corpus. So what? Let them. Isn't that what our system's all about? And by the way, America, unfortunately, has 2 million people in jail, all of whom had lawyers and access to writs of habeas corpus. And so we can handle bad people within our system. Every morning I pick up a paper, and some authoritarian figure, some person somewhere, is using Guantanamo to hide their own misdeeds. And so essentially we have shaken the belief that the world had in America's justice system by keeping a place like Guantanamo open and creating things like the military commission. We don't need it, and it's causing us far more damage than any good we get for it.